things are holding up.
Sherry's daughter's name? Caitlin. Kate. Hello.
All right, here we go.
Caitlin, this is Daphne and Mary. Hi.
And I've got some pencils. Yeah. Yep, I want the eraser. Okay, so more amazing, inspiring stuff. I love coming back and teaching this because there are times I know things, but then I'm like, I didn't realize that. I finally made some more aha connections. So the first page is basically what we just did. We did our warm-up. We didn't do the full body deployment because I was watching the time, but that's something you can add in. We did the stretch of the neck with the weights, and you felt how if you do the pull down, you can open up the sides of the neck. That's my favorite thing before I do my weightlifting, is to actually sit there and open up my neck by shifting from side to side. And this is lateral flexion, which is going to be different than rotation. You're going to be opening up different aspects of the neck, which is also flexion extension this way. So you got flexion extension, lateral rotation, and rotation this way. All those movements are going to open up different muscles of the neck. Flexing the elbows and winging the scapula, we went over that. And then wrists and fingers, talking about how you can coil your fingers here. The additional scapula stretch is the one where we went over to the wall with our fingers up and reached under. And then Caitlin, you had originally grabbed the deltoid. I've seen that too, and you can actually get some nice, go all the way up and down. But for today, it's like grabbing that scapula and getting that to move. And then for you, like I said, I saw you move your hips. So keep the hips facing the wall so you isolate that. I wanted to show you there's a difference between pads of the fingers. And so this is something we will practice. And it's not just pressing, it's practicing picking up fabric. And right now, and make sure you really feel the pads. And right now, Mary, I still see you scraping. That's different. Oh. And I'm going to say that as a massage therapist. Grabbing with the pads, people pay you money. Grabbing with the fingertips is when you want to gouge an eye out. It's different. And both of them are good for strengthening, but it's just good to make that distinction. And so I've seen some... Yep.
I was going back and forth.
Now, here's the thing, is there's another, when we do our deployment with our fingertips like this, those are fingertips, not finger pads. Pads don't feel good. I'll do my whole palm of my hand. But as Chinese massage therapists, we will practice this. And when you're doing your own Qigong, there's Qigong like this where you're patting, there's Qigongs like this where you're patting, and this. And energetically, they say, imagine that there's energetic needles in your fingers, and there's this pricking and intensity. So I'm going to come around. You feel that?
Yes.
And traditionally, they will say this, go out and find a rock and hit it till your fingers bleed. I mean, the Chinese doctor said that. Yes. And I'm like, okay, how about I just go do my leg for a while?
Yeah. And that's your fingertips.
That's my fingertips. Mm-hmm. And then just for comparison, these are finger pads. These are fingertips. These are finger pads. These are fingertips. It's kind of a different... These are finger pads. And see, it's good for grabbing, like I said, practice picking up fabric. These are fingertips. I mean, those are good if I want to wiggle it, but I won't. I got to... Finger pads. Fingertips. So my... no, I won't go into that. When I first started massage school students, I would always use fingertips, and people would be just like, stop it. So it's just a distinction if you see people doing finger exercises. This motion, I see this motion over and over and over again, and I see it in sword a lot. This is how you get your sword to rotate is you squeeze with the pinky first and you rotate your sword out. And so it's a very powerful motion. If you're going to grab someone, can I see your arm? It's that twisting. Rather than, you can go like this, but this is very linear. There's something, you add that. This will start my full body coiling. And it's called, I've seen another exercise, they'll call it pulling wild horse's mane, or pulling in the reins. And look, there's that. This is from another exercise, but it's there. And so this is me doing that comparison and cross. And then, so they'll have you do this, they'll have you do this, and then they make you do this like 12 times. But it's the same theme all the way through if you start looking for the patterns, which is what I find fascinating. So that's what we just did. Page 2 is the comparisons, and then the gaze of the tiger sequence. So that's just me writing words of what we just did. Page 3, we're going to get into the anatomy, and I've got 15 minutes. So we've talked about breathing before. We will talk about breathing again, because when we talked about breathing before, we primarily talked about the diaphragm and what was happening inside the lungs with pressure. And we're going to come back to that. When we talk about breathing in the future, we're going to talk about its effects on the nervous system. We're going to talk about its effects on the cardiovascular system. All these different components that affect your health. But right now, there are primary muscles of inspiration. The ones that you should be, primary. What should be first? What should be doing most of the work? Your diaphragm, which is the dome underneath your rib cage. I have pictures of that in other handouts. And remember, the dome, it's front to back. It goes and attaches to your low back, as well as underneath your ribs. And when you inhale, it pulls down and compresses. And it has a rhythm with your pelvic floor, apparently. More to come on that later. The external intercostals is another primary. Those are the ones in between your ribs. So when we're doing our side stretches, we're going to be opening up those intercostals. And in certain massage therapy, we'll go through and we will have the client breathe, and we'll open up each and every single one of those ribs, because they'll start to stick together and then your ribs can't fully articulate and move. Now, the scaling muscles, it wasn't listed in my original textbook, but I checked, and they will say that they are actually a primary. But you want to use this muscle and this muscle